the argument coming from Kamala Harris and her team, I should really say her team, she hasn't said anything yet, is just so remarkably glaring and flies in the face of the non-work she's done for these 3.5 years. How can you be someone who says you're strong on the border, and why did it take you 3.5 years to make that decision?
She has yet to put a policy platform on her website. And so, yes, Kamala Harris has been like this abortion czar spokesperson for the Biden administration. But a follow-up I would ask is, okay, then what's took you so long to define that as some like a key part of your campaign and put it on the website and release a platform?
The narrative already is that she's incompetent. That's the narrative right now. And only so much of that narrative can go to that 10% that we're looking at, the 45 and the 45 that are already spoken for. That 10% narrative, that's one thing that could actually begin to play into the fact that she is not competent enough to be president.
All right, guys, this is Thursday. We are on a glide path to the weekend. Get ready. But a lot to happen. Tonight, in just a couple hours, Dana Bash will sit down with Kamala Harris and her emotional support animal for the first interview since they pushed Joe Biden aside. This is going to be a very, very big deal. Will they ask any real questions? Will CNN coddle them? Will Tim Ralston actually be held accountable for his, let's just call them mistruths? At night. So much to get into. Plus, I want to talk to Doug Collins. He's on the panel today about Georgia. How important it is because Kamala Harris suddenly wants to spend a lot of time in rural Georgia. Why? Maybe they've just got a good, peach pies. I don't know. Doug Collins is going to tell us why. A big panel discussion coming up. Tony Katz, Indiana's own, is going to join us. Reagan Reese, the Daily Caller's own. She's going to be her White House correspondent. And Doug Collins, Georgia's very own, the peach himself, former member of Congress from Georgia. Before I get to that, I want to tell you guys, it's been, I've been running around. Let's just face it. I can't sit still anymore. I got knee issues. I got hip issues. I don't even want to tell you. I literally think I'm putting orthopedic surgeons' kids through college. But since I didn't want to take any time off as we get ready for the election, what did I do? I got gravity Defyer shoes. Check out this. Unbelievable cushion. These are the ones I use for training and walking. Any of my neighbors know when I got issues, I just go walking. I make phone calls. That's what I do. I got another pair when I go running. These things are so unbelievably comfortable. They've got this thing called Verso technology. It's literally like stepping on a trampoline. That kind of comfort is what I'm talking about. I at least have a temporary reprieve from all of the ailments that I have in the knee and the hip issue. I got a separate pair for running. They've got sandals. Go to gdefy.com. If you use code SPICER30, you get 30% off your order of $150 or more. But I'm telling you, these will change everything. You put them on your feet, you're not going back. I don't care what you're wearing now. Go to gdefy.com. Use code SPICER30. You'll be thanking me. You will literally be thanking me, calling me up saying, Sean, I switched to Gravity Defyer shoes. I don't know what to do anymore. Well, you do. You'll have a whole array of choices going forward. gdefy.com, code SPICER30. All right, let's bring in the panel. Tony Katz, Doug Collins, and Reagan Reese. Guys, good to see you all. Happy Thursday all around. We are T-minus like 2 hours from this big interview. I want to just start with a question. Tony Katz, you do this for a living every day on the radio out there in Indiana. If you could ask, in all seriousness, if Dana Bash calls you and says, I freaked out, I forgot what day it was, Tony Katz, what do your listeners want to hear? What can I ask? Which would be my first question to Kamala Harris. What would you tell her?
Midwest or not, the first real question would be, how can you be someone who says you're strong on the border, and why did it take you 3.5 years to make that decision? That would be the first question. Midwest is border, right? Every state is a border state, as the expression goes. That would be first on the list, because if you eliminate the snark kind of stuff, right? If you eliminate the joking kind of stuff, and you get down to the brass tacks, that problem is probably the first on minds. And then the second one is, if you really cared about Midwest families, why does it cost so much to buy food? That would be number two. Now, you might switch them, but I think the border question would be first, because the argument coming from Kamala Harris and her team, I should really say her team, she hasn't said anything yet, is just so remarkably glaring and flies in the face of the non-work she's done for these 3.5 years.
All right, Reagan Reese, you do this for a living at the White House. You're the White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. She steps up. She allows you to ask that first question. What's on your list?
It's like, where do you start? But the first thing that I think has gone unanswered is, did you know about President Biden's decline?
Oh, bingo!
Help cover that up.
Oh, she
Also,
just
what
trumped
took you so
Tony
long to
Katz.
answer
Boom!
questions about it?
Thanks, Sean. She stole my answer.
All right, what about this? Grade me. See, here's what I've learned as someone who's been on the receiving end and now on the flip side, and you guys are really good at this. So I want to honestly, so many times when you ask a question, the person who's answering is trying to weasel out of it. And so you're trying to construct a question they can't weasel out. So here's mine, and I want you to grade me in all honesty. I won't just cut your feet if you're wrong. If I would say to her, you've made abortion a central theme of your campaign. When, if ever, should abortion not be legal? Tony, what do you think?
First in rating
I can
the
take it.
question.
I can take it. Tell
First,
me.
in rating the question, I don't think it's a bad kind of trapping in to see if there's ever a moment where she says, no, you shouldn't do this in the 9th month while you're on the table and giving birth and the parents are there waiting to see their grandchild, right? I don't know if she would give that answer or not. But the idea that someone would ask that question at a network like the kind of network she would go to do the interview, a 0.0 chance. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it.
I don't know. Dana asked during the last cycle, remember, she was the one who actually asked a bunch of those Senate candidates that question, what week, if any, or, what's the line for you? I don't know that it'll be number one, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's asked. Reagan, grade my question.
I think it's a good question.
Thank you.
Because I'm not just saying that because I want to come back on the show.
She is.
I'm saying that because she has yet to put a policy platform on her website. And so, yes, Kamala Harris has been like this abortion czar spokesperson for the Biden administration. But a follow-up I would ask is, okay, then what's took you so long to define that as a key part of your campaign and put it on the website and release a platform? I think that's a big part that's missing from the Harris campaign that voters should be concerned about.
All right, Doug.
Yeah, I think the question's fine. I'd probably shorten it. I'd just say, is there, under any circumstances that an abortion should not be made, that an abortion, there should be restrictions on abortion, period. And just let it go at that. But I've got a thing. Reagan hit it first. She had the question about, Biden's health. Mine is at this point in time, the John Kerry campaign in 2004 actually looks like a principled campaign. I mean, they are flip-flopping on every issue. My first question would be to read off. In 2019, you said that the border wall was fantasy. In 2019, just walk through about 6 of these flip-flops here in the last, 30 to 45 days. You never heard this before that. You can say, what enlightened you or what changed your mind about the position to say you were once wrong and now you are right? Because she's never answered. It's just like Reagan just said. There's nothing on her policy page. So why in the last 45 days have you become a fan of border wall spending? Why have you become a person who, let's look down through here?
But we don't know what she's a fan of. I mean, I think that's the point, sir. That her staff, her surrogates, her aides, they'll all tell you what these things are. It's like the electric vehicle mandates. She no longer believes in EV mandates. We don't know that because we haven't heard from her. So that she says she has these positions isn't true. So you would be asking her these questions and trying to get the actual answer as opposed to the nonsense that we're being fed so far to try and appease.
I think what Tony brings up is so important because the media acts like she's been making these policy pronouncements. She no longer supports this. She has changed her position on this. She hasn't done anything. It's unnamed sources and surrogates that are saying, nope, doesn't believe that anymore. And they take it at whole cloth. Like there's no evidence that she's actually said anything. And it's unbelievable because in any normal circumstance, they would say, well, we haven't confirmed that, or we haven't actually spoken to her, blah, blah, blah. It's like someone tweets out something and they're like, well, she's changed her position on this. I want to ask you though, what about Tim Walz tonight? Will he just sit there and play the adoring role of emotional support animal? Or will there be any serious questions to him? And what's his role, Reagan?
The headline I wrote was training walls, and that was came up by our editorial director, Vince Colonnese. This is basically like training wheels for Kamala Harris to be there as emotional support. I saw that now once, top Biden spin man at the White House, now a top Harris spokesperson, Ian Sams, said, oh, it's tradition for presidential candidates to sit down with their VP pick and to do questions. Okay, but nothing about this campaign is traditional. Is it traditional to, throw out the presumptive Democratic nominee after Americans have decided that's who they want to be their nominee? No. And is it, tradition to have this be the first presidential candidate's chance at answering questions alongside their VP pick to kind of bail them out? I do think that the one thing that's important to note is this was in Politico Playbook yesterday, that aides were kind of concerned about putting Tim Walz out there to do media hits because they're not sure that he can define Kamala Harris's policy platform and answer questions about it. Shocker, because we don't know what it is. Right. And so I do believe that, yes, he's going to be a bit of a crutch there for her, but I also think there's that concern that he might just be as screwed as she is.
I mean, look, I think I got a different opinion. I think they're waiting for 2 hours. I think he's there to protect her. I think he is there in a sense of covering. If Dana gets too harsh with, say, an abortion question, Dana gets too harsh with a question that comes too close, he's going to be the all shucks Midwestern. Come now, Dana, that's not true. And give her cover to recover. And if she starts into this, we were better before, unhinged from behind, and now we're looking up, and now I'm looking down, and the world is about time, and time is about space, and space. He's going to look out and say, I was seeing that the other day in the Midwest, Minnesota. We believe the same thing. They've got to have something to protect. And I think that's his role. I agree, though, it could be training, but I feel sorry for Tim Walz. I feel sorry for their whole side. How are they supposed to actually define what she believes when she can't define what she believes?
How about
but this is also a guy, right? What does he stand for? This guy's lied about every aspect of his life, his family life, his DWI he lied about, his military record he lied about. I mean, they're kind of cut from the same cloth, Tony.
How about the scoop that Doug Collins is actually a Kamala Harris speechwriter? Who knew? I did not have that on the bingo card. The argument of why he's there, it could be that she can't do it on her own. It could be that he's there to deflect. It could be to introduce them as a team to the country. I don't think any of that matters. What possibly beats the iconography of Kamala Harris being unable to sit down for an interview on her own? What cuts through? What will be able to defeat the iconography of the first woman running as president of the United States with an actual chance to win? Or you could say that's Hillary, right? Woman of color will make it even more in the box. Unable to do this without a man next to her. How do the feminists square this circle? On the racial conversation, how do they square the circle? There's no way that this ends up being good for them. That it seems that even the interview itself won't matter. She can beclown herself. She could say something that we debate. But in the end, when the moment came for us to learn about her, after these 40 days of silence, she wouldn't let us talk to her alone. There is something about that visual that I think is going to stick with them for this next 67 days, and I think it's defining.
Do you think, Tony, since you brought it up, that she does? I mean, I've listened. I agree with Reagan. They're all like, "Oh, it's traditional." First of all, she was absolutely right. There's nothing traditional about this. Second of all, there's nothing traditional about not doing one on your own. Like, prior to picking your VP, a candidate does interviews. This is another duck and cover move. But the broader question I have, since you brought it up, and let's go around the horn on this, does she now buy herself another 30 days, or will there be another interview solo, let's say within 14 days?
Place your bet at 14 days. I think it'll be another 2 weeks before she does anything. But then again, maybe that all gets thrown out because of the debate on September 10th, if it happens.
Yeah, she won't say anything before the 10th. She's done before the 10th. I think she's honestly been in debate prep ever since they agreed to the debate. because she's having to memorize because there's no way you can put a teleprompter in a debate. And reading glasses, she can't put enough notes on her arm. I mean, I honestly, her teleprompter is her reading glasses, and I just don't think. I think that's become the problem here. But I'm even more cynical. Okay, I'm part of the quote outside the media, but being in the media. Look, the media are invested in this campaign. They have been since the day they helped get rid of Joe Biden. So they're willing to. I mean, they have thrown out all the books. They've thrown out everything to protect Vice President Harris and Walz, for that matter, to make sure that this goes off okay. Now, they've gotten irritated because they thought even if we, look, send her to us, we'll give her some softballs, it'll be okay, and we'll cover for it. Because I don't care what happens in this interview tonight, it will be viewed as a wonderful thing unless she goes into the rambling word salad that she has done in the past. If she does that, then it's going to be a little harder, but I guarantee you it will disappear from ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, Politico, everybody. It'll disappear like it was a meteorite passing in the dark, and they'll say, what was that? I ain't got a clue. Nobody will talk about it.
I don't think she's going to do one either. And I think you're completely right, Doug, in saying that the media is kind of covering for her. Politico was already running defense for Harris. Yesterday's playbook again said, when Harris said that she was going to do an interview by the end of August, she meant she was going to schedule one by the end of August. She wasn't going to show up for one. And I was like, that is complete BS. And, so I think this is going to pacify the media. Something that's going unnoticed that I think that VP Harris is doing that's helping pacify the media even further is that she's doing these off-the-record gaggles on Air Force Two. And so she's answering questions from reporters every time she travels, but they're off the record. They can't report any of it. And I am sure that that is good enough for the outlets that can afford to travel on Air Force Two, your CBS, your MSNBC, your NBC, etc.
Before I hit Tony, I want to hit something because Reagan just hit something that reminded me. You remember when they were talking about the debates and there became this big kerfuffle, and all this is cocktail party trash for Washington, D.C. Are they going to debate? It's not a debate, number one. Forget that. Quit saying it's a debate. It's not. It's a question and answer. That's all it is, period. Number two is they started talking about this, and they say when Trump said something about doing more debates, I remember distinctly some either Politico or maybe Punchbowl or one of those rags said that Trump, that he couldn't change because he had already agreed to the September 10th debate. He'd already agreed. And it was interesting, but a few weeks ago when Trump was talking about would he debate to Kamala Harris, it was, he didn't know that he was going to be her. And they tried to reverse it, saying it's one thing for him and another thing for her. They've been covering for this the whole time because they're scared to death of what will happen. And reality, folks, it's working. Let's just be honest about it. It's working in the polls. It's working in some of the swing states, and they are building this case, and they got to keep it up.
Yeah. All right. Before Tony, I want to touch on the debate because you brought it up real quick.
Sure.
Before I do that, there's one other thing I want to touch on, which is something that a lot of Americans are getting. They're called pay-up notices. The IRS is sending them out to millions and millions of us right now. 50,000 new IRS agents because of the Democrats. They have nothing else to do but sit around Washington, D.C. and try to harass Americans, whether you owe 5,000, 5 million, it doesn't matter, personal, business, whatever. But the power of the federal government, they have. We all know that. We've seen what can happen in the Department of Justice when they want to come after you. Can you imagine what happens when the IRS comes after you? So many of our neighbors, maybe even ourselves, are getting these pay-up notices from the IRS because they want our money. And it doesn't matter. This isn't a return on investment thing where they're weighing how much it makes sense to come after us. They'll come after you with the full force of the government for $5,000. If that happens, I advise you to get professional help. I think the best in the business are the folks at Tax Network. If you go to tnusa.com/Sean Spicer, you got to put the full name in there. You can get the help and the expertise of the folks at Tax Network. The best part is they've recovered over $1 billion, $1 billion for their clients. They know what they're doing. They've got the expertise. If the IRS calls you, send you one of these letters, visits your door, say, thank you very much. Before I talk to you, I need to talk to my friends at Tax Network. Go to tnusa.com/Sean Spicer. If you're not good on the internet, pick up the phone and dial 1-800-245-6000. Trust me, you won't regret that. All right, Tony Katz, I promised you I'd go back to the issue that you brought up, the debate. You questioned whether it would happen.
Yeah.
Why? Make the case.
I make the argument that the conversation about the microphone, to which Doug is alluding to, and it's weird to call you by your first name, sir. It's awkward. It's freaking me out. That
It's been I've been called before, so.
Well,
Sir Doug.
Thanks,
so what Dougie Fresh is discussing here about the microphone is that's not that conversation is a meaningless conversation. They agreed with the Biden team to have it muted. Now she wants it unmuted because she wants that "I'm speaking, Donald" moment. She wants that interruption moment. We all agree with that. But what happens if we're the people saying that she can't do an interview on her own? She can't speak as Dougie Doug mentioned about a teleprompter. We've all seen her ad lib, and the word salad goes on for forever. If there's a real fear here, why not create more blockades, issues to a debate to then be able to not have the debate? If the plan is to let the media carry the water, why would I think with all of this that's getting discussed and agreed to right here that this wouldn't be the end result? No debates. Thank you very much.
I think that Trump. All right, let me know what you guys think. I mean, Tony's thrown out a lot there.
Yeah, I think it's about a lot of discussion before the Biden debate. I think there's a lot of discussion. It'll never happen. At first it was said Trump won't, then they said Biden won't, then it actually happened. I think it's got to happen, Tony.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. And I don't disagree with you. If I was them, I've shared this story before. One of my first campaigns I ever run, we were into a runoff. It was the first 4 days after the runoff, and I sat down with the opponent, and we did a early morning radio interview. And I was tired. I wasn't there. My opponent was a little feisty about it, answered some questions, popped back. I didn't pop back well. I remember getting back in my truck. I was tired, and I looked down at my phone, and my campaign consultant, my main campaign manager, put on there. I looked down, I saw his name, and I said, well, maybe this will be some encouragement. I looked down, and all he put was pathetic. He said, if that's the way you're going to be, he said, we'll just run paid media for the rest of the campaign. These things matter.
Wow.
And so I think what we got here is they would love to run paid media because she is probably not going to be up to task, but they're looking for the gimmick, Tony. You're exactly right. They're trying to gimmick their way through this debate now. And I think that's what you'll see more and more discussion about, trying to find the gimmick. The gimmick will be to get Donald Trump upset. The gimmick.
So wait, Doug, if she says yes, okay, if Trump says yes, fine, no mics. I mean, whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. You think there'll be another hurdle?
I don't think they can. I don't think they honestly can find one. I think they've got to go through with this because the narrative already is that she's incompetent. That's the narrative right now. And only so much of that narrative can go to that 10% that we're looking at, the 45 and the 45 that are already spoken for. That 10% narrative, that's one thing that could actually begin to play into the fact that she is not competent enough to be president, in my opinion.
I think there's going to be a September 10th debate. I'm more concerned about whether there's going to be a second debate. And I think there's already drama happening with that. If you remember, the Harris campaign put out a statement, I believe it was last week, that said the debate about debates is over. And then, of course, we have this whole mic thing. And in that same statement, the Harris campaign said that the Trump campaign agreed to their conditions with the debate, agreed to their debate format, and that if President Trump shows up to a September 10th debate, then there would be a debate in October. I've never heard of a debate in October. President Trump proposed 3 debates, September 4th, September 10th, and September 25th with NBC News, which we would think the Harris campaign would love. When I spoke to the Trump campaign about it, they said that the Harris campaign was lying, that there's been no discussion about an October debate, and was unsure where they were getting this October forum suggestion from. And so I think that that's going to be something that the media should focus on. I know we're going to be hammering it. We have been hammering it. But of course, it's going to be harder for mainstream media to be trying to push for a second forum. They're once again going to be pacified by this first debate. Maybe they'll want to see Harris do a second one if she does so well. But I just think that she's not going to show up to a second one.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Reagan, you cover the White House, and in all the conversation about Kamala Harris being incompetent, it's clear that the White House thought she was incompetent. She was backbench of backbench. They put her on tasks that had no meaning. They gave her titles and they didn't care, like borders are, what she did with it. I'm curious, you watched it happen. Why is it that the Republicans aren't focused more on how Joe Biden didn't have any faith in Kamala Harris? Why should America have faith in Kamala Harris?
That's a really great question. I think it's something that we've raised in our office as well. Wasn't it just months ago that Democrats were considering whether Harris should be taken off the ticket because she was dragging
There were
Joe
op-eds
Biden
in the Washington
down?
Post.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's, that's definitely a blind spot that Republicans are missing. And perhaps the White House doesn't want their hands on it. And that's why we haven't seen Biden for 2 weeks. And Karine Jean-Pierre has been who knows where, not taking our questions from the White House press briefing room.
I don't think they're avoiding. I think Biden would love to. They're just keeping him away from a mic. I think he is chomping at the bit to get back at Obama and get back at Clinton. And because you can just sort of see it. I mean, he's just furious about it. But here's another question. I want to throw this out because it's hit me as we're talking about debates. We're talking about networks. Since when does it become a fact in these discussions that only ABC, NBC, and CBS are the places for debate? The Democrats will only run to ABC, CBS, and NBC. When Fox News is brought up, this is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. When Fox News will come up, well, no, we can't do Fox News. They're hot. Okay, they're one of the largest media outlets on cable TV. In fact, the largest. I mean, you look at it, MSNBC, nowhere close. CNN, nowhere close. No, the others, as much as we want to. Newsmax, none of them close. But yet, it's just accepted that a Democrat can say, I'm not doing a Fox News. I mean, when did we digress so far in this country and it be such to the level that you can't even consider and not even be held accountable for saying, I will not go on to a certain network and speak? Open for suggestions.
Reagan, you want it first?
Yeah,
Sean?
I was gonna say Reagan. Reagan's the one that's in the briefing room every day.
This is my little plug. If you're a Fox News executive who's involved in these conversations, call me because I want to know, seriously, how hard did Fox News push Kamala Harris to get there on that debate stage? When September 4th rolls around, is Fox going to air for 2 hours President Trump standing at a podium with an empty podium next to him? He should do a town hall. And that's,
I think, right? Isn't he going to do something?
Yeah, they've alluded to me that they, that could be something that they're going to do. But
the empty podium.
Yeah, this is something that they should double down on, whether it's Fox or the Trump campaign. I felt like there wasn't even enough uproar about this when President Biden proposed all of his conditions. And he said, I'm only doing it on these 3 networks. It's another blind spot I think Republicans are missing.
I think that they cover for each other. This is the same thing with the Kamala interview that I was saying, right? Once you choose a softball interview, the rest of them will protect you. And so to your question, Doug, it's not like ABC or CBS is going to be like, I can't believe you're not doing it on Fox. They have an equal right to host. They don't care. Like it's a game of numbers, and Fox is one, and then everyone else, not just the broadcast, but the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, they're not coming to Fox. I mean, how many times have we seen instances where Fox was like kicked out of the pool? Didn't Obama do a bunch of like bad stuff to Fox and no one rushed to their defense, even though they care about press access and transparency and the First Amendment? They don't care about it when it's not them. And that's in my opinion, having been at the podium, they're all for, these principles, except when it's somebody else.
It's a good point that more should have been made of the fact that if you won't do a debate on Fox, who do you think you are to decide the rules? But I mean, this plays into, people aren't going to like it, a weakness of Trump. He just wants it. Game on. Let's go. Wherever it is, where we're going to do it. We're going to do it this network, that network. You got yourself somebody's living room. Let's go. I'll be there. Someone bring the Diet Cokes, bring the burgers. We're good. Like it doesn't mattered to him. And I think that it should a little bit, because there could have been a really fascinating story of, wait, you don't get to decide how this goes. I'm showing up at Fox on the 4th. You're not there. We're not doing it. That could have been a very interesting fight. I just don't know if it would have been a fight that took away from maybe other things and other opportunities. That I don't have an answer for.
Yeah, here's a great ad that the Trump team could run on the 4th on the Fox side. Remember when she got up and said, "You want to say those things? Say it on my face. I'm here."
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Doug, I want to switch gears for a second, because Monday, if I'm doing this right, was the 3rd anniversary of that Afghanistan withdrawal that resulted in 13 soldiers being killed. Trump is the only one to go to Arlington to actually do anything publicly. The White House released a statement for the first time, at least that I can recall, acknowledging the names of the 13 killed. Trump goes to Arlington, he lays a wreath, and then he goes to Section 60, where they're buried, with some of the families. So it wasn't just like a one and done. He actually spent some quality time with the families going to the gravesite. Then the controversy about whether or not his staffer or something took a photo or pushed somebody, whatever. And I'm like, wait a second. Why isn't the controversy no one in the leadership that made that decision, Kamala Harris, who was the last person in the room, or vice president, or the president who is on a vacation from his vacation, did anything publicly? And Trump's catching the flack, Doug? It blows my mind sometimes how backwards the priorities are. He was the one guy that showed up, that paid honor to the sacrifice of these 13 soldiers and their families. And he's catching flack for someone maybe taking a photo. And yet President Biden's on vacation from the vacation. Kamala Harris hasn't ever publicly said their names, met with them, called them, nothing to the families. And he's the guy that's getting the negative press.
Yeah, everybody was talking about, and I heard some on the, even right-leaning press and everything complaining that Trump wasn't doing enough in campaigning in August and all this stuff. And over the past 5 days, he's been everywhere, and he's done exactly the kind of campaigning that he's best at. The small groups, then going to the little speeches and doing it. He's excellent at that. You and Sean, you know this. I mean, we've talked to him. Everybody here. I mean, when you get with him, especially in those small groups, he is really charismatic. He is somebody who can really relate in those times. It was amazing to me because the reporting has it that they were reached out to the White House on multiple occasions for Biden or Harris or someone. Are they going to acknowledge this? And they basically blew it off for 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. I've seen that reported. Now, after it happened, they thought it wasn't that big a deal. Here's what I believe happened. It was a uh-oh moment for them. They thought nobody's going to worry. Trump goes, nobody will care. And then all of a sudden, they started seeing the pictures of him holding the wreath, putting it on, and then screenshot to Joe Biden laying on the beach scrolling with his phone. They showed Harris being nowhere out. I believe this is a media-generated controversy because he was getting too much press that laid it out for him. There is no problem. There is no picture problem. There is nothing. This is just Washington, D.C. made up. I'll just be nice on this podcast, bull crap.
So good. So good. Oh, that is, I love that. I love that take because it's right. I mean, I was like, it wasn't until they realized how they blew it. Tony, did you get a lot of callers on your show that were outraged about what happened or that this was an issue for them?
Not particularly, but more commentary of, hey, did you see this? A lot of social media people who follow me on X at Tony Katz, that's a plug, sharing that side-by-side shot that Doug is talking about. It's again, you go back to this concept of iconography. What does an image tell us? It's like that image of Chris Christie on the beach chair. Everybody else is shut down and locked down, and there's Chris Christie just hanging out, getting a tan. These are the kinds of things. Everybody else is locked down, and there's Nancy Pelosi getting her hair done. The image tells more than a 1,000 words, and in this case, that side by side is an example of where your commander-in-chief should be and the commander-in-chief that unfortunately we have. And I think that is part of, you want to talk about something that should be utilized in the campaign going forward. It's absolutely that. But it is, I think, a solid take that they realized they made a mistake and then tried to make up for it by creating the scandal in the other place. But I actually think that whole story is dead now. That scandal existed for the cable news set that has already made their decision and is working outrageously hard to get Kamala Harris elected. At certainly that dog don't hunt in the Midwest, and I don't think it does for the Georgia voter either.
Doug, Tony brought up Georgia.
Yep.
Trump made nice with your governor, Brian Kemp. And Brian Kemp is making nice with Donald Trump. He's talking about raising money, deploying his. Give me a state of play on where Georgia is, because Kamala's spending a lot of time down there doing this rural bus tour. I think her deputy campaign manager was part of Warnock's team.
Yep.
They're trying to sell us that Georgia's now more in play than it was. You're on the ground.
Yeah.
What's the state of play in Georgia?
Look, Georgia's is about where I thought it would be right now, and it's actually it was a sort of illusory before Biden got out. I mean, because it really had gone back to what we had seen before Biden had just really tanked in Georgia, like he had in a lot of the swing states, but especially in the South, and Trump was there. Harris did what she needed to do when they put her on the ticket, and that was solidify a little bit more of the Georgia Democrat Party base, the African American female, the African American vote in general, but she's still running a little bit behind there. Asian and Hispanic votes also are a little bit behind there, but she's done a little bit better with some of the suburban voters, the women, suburban voters, even men, in the educated vote. So it's gotten closer. I still see it probably as a 2 to 3 point, 4 point swing. I think the Kennedy factor here probably helps a little bit in Georgia for Trump in that regard. But this one is going to be a fight till November. And I think while they're spending money here, they had the illusory win of Warnock and Ossoff that had nothing to do necessarily with how good they were doing, but a lot to do with what we were doing on our side. And now they think they can put that into the right place. Read nothing much into the sort of bus tour. Savannah is interesting because that's one of the 5 big areas of Democrat voters in Georgia. You have Atlanta, Augusta, Savannah, Columbus, and Macon. And what they're doing right now is trying to solidify the ring, if you would, those 5 areas, and then reach out a little bit more. Let me just say this for all of you listening to the podcast, and Sean, I think maybe you and I have talked about this, but this is something Tony and the rest of y'all report. Democrats are doing stuff in Georgia that Republicans did 25 years ago, and I could go into a long, but I'm not, just listen to me. They're going in areas where they can't win necessarily, but they're gaining a point. They're gaining a point and a half or 2 points. So when you have an election that will be decided with under 100,000 votes, and you're able to put in, say, 10,000 votes here, 10,000 votes there, in normally Republican areas, you're seeing those things tighten. So that's why you're spending. Trump is spending money here. They do have a ground game here. That's a lie being put out by the Democrats. The Trump team has nothing, but they do. But right now, the race is about where I would see it. But I see hopefully the Trump team will focus on immigration and economy. And I love Tony's first question. He talked about why does it cost more? She's in South Georgia farm country. We're a huge agricultural state, agricultural and blueberries, cotton, pecans, all these things. And all of that is being deathly affected by the inflation and by the economy of Joe Biden. We've got to tie Harris to that economy.
Reagan, Doug alluded to RFK. What is the scuttlebutt among your peers about the effect that RFK could have on this race and what his role may or may not be?
I think in a game of inches, every point that you can get matters. And so that's why I think this RFK Jr. thing is a good thing for Trump, whether it just moves a couple thousand votes, like Doug mentioned. That is kind of the whole philosophy behind, get out the vote efforts and trying to just pull as many votes from as many different communities as you can. I think one thing to take note of with Donald Trump's endorsements from former Democrats, I think they are going to carry a lot more weight, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, than the Republican endorsements that Kamala Harris is getting. That list of former Bush staffers and Lindsey Graham. I don't think that quite hits as hard as, the RFK Jr. endorsement and the Tulsi Gabbard endorsement.
Yeah, it's the staffers of Bush, McCain, and Romney. And collectively, they're known as a group called Who, and no one knows who they are. No one cares who they are. I would, however, make a recommendation to the Republican Party that if you see them on a resume, don't hire them. If you see them working for a company that you normally deal with another company. I do think it's that bad. I do think it's that off-putting, because I will admit quite freely, I'm a conservative. I'm not a populist. I'm voting for Trump because I understand my options. But in the primary, he wasn't my guy. I say that freely. I don't worry about it at all or in any way. And you don't have to. You have to be rational about the situation that you're in. This conversation from these staffers is completely irrational. The David French model of I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris to save democracy is not the conversation of normal, rational people, nor is it the conversation of the conservative. It is a maddening proposition. And I'm not a cancel culture guy, but if you gave me these people and showed me on a resume that they signed this letter, I wouldn't hire them. Not for a second.
No, I think it has an issue of spinelessness. I'm going to be blunt about it. And I think this is an issue. Look, you can be with whoever you want to be, but don't claim something and not, and then all of a sudden, or at least be like Vice President Harris, tell us why you flip-flop. Tell us why you change. And don't just say orange man bad. That's not a principled reason. Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan down here in Georgia has made a career now, or second career or whatever, doing something with CNN and AJC, talking about how Trump is bad and how he's going to actually, and he got his speaking spot on the DNC convention. But this is a man, I got to tell you, this is someone who, actively courted the pro-life movement, who actually, remember the controversy about the pins, the appeal to heaven pins that had the tree, the symbol. He wore that on the Georgia House in his time when he was on the Georgia House before he was elected governor. This is someone who actually said he took the coaster where he said, right, doing the right thing is the right all the time. Well, then how do you explain to the voters who voted for you and the people around you that now you're going to elect someone who's willing to admit that abortion's okay to whenever with no restrictions, that you're okay with an open border, that you're okay with drugs coming across, you're okay with transgender reaffirming surgeries to the exclusion of others, and men and women and being put in the same athletic competitions? How are you supposed to explain to them how you feel that energy dependence is better than energy independence? I'm tired of people who want to claim Republican or claim Democrat. I'm going to put it on both sides. You play honest and play fair. Don't play bad man, I don't like him, or good person, because if you do this, you look like you have no political spine.
I can see, to Tony's point, if you're someone on principle and you say, I don't like Donald Trump or whatever, or I'm a liberal and I can't, then don't vote. Okay. Or say whatever. But to say I'm voting for somebody who's diametrically opposed, Kamala Harris, to your point, she's pro-abortion. She is pro open borders. Like, you can't claim, I love when these people say, I'm a conservative, but no, you're not. You could say, I can't in good conscience vote for Trump because I don't believe he's conservative enough or something like that. But to then say, I'm voting for the person whose principles are diametrically opposed to the ones that I say I believe in doesn't make any sense. All right, couple minutes left. Thursday tradition. Reagan, I want to start with you. Who is your person that you think that had a good week this week?
Okay, my winner.
Yeah.
Community Notes. I think Community Notes really I know.
On Twitter, just in case everyone's wondering, I had to take a second to digest that.
Yes.
Community Notes. Okay.
They fact-checked a Politico headline that said Vance tries to tie Harris to Biden.
Yep.
I love that when I saw it.
It was fact-checked with a link to the White House website that said the Biden-Harris administration, and said Harris is, in fact, Biden's vice president. And I thought that was a great dunk on Politico that needed to be highlighted.
Oh, good. It's such a great start to this little segment. Who's your loser of the week?
My loser could potentially be Dana tonight, depending on, whether she presses these candidates. I think that she could really be considered a joke if she, fumbles this opportunity to really hammer Harris and Walz. And I think that could go over poorly in the journalism world.
Yeah, I will say this. I would be surprised if she doesn't, I mean, she may not be as tough as the four of us like, but I think for a lot of reasons, she might not be, like, again, I don't think she's going to be as tough as we want, but she'll ask enough of the questions to check a box. Doug, winner and loser of the week.
Winner of the week is one may surprise you. It's J.D. Vance. And I say that because he's getting better and better on the stump. And I think that was something that was missing in the first, he's always been good in interviews and the one-on-ones kind of stuff. He's really quick. He's really sharp, but now he's getting more comfortable in the role of vice president candidate out there in reacting to crowds and being more personal. And this week he said, someone just recently was just on social media that said, somebody yelled out, "Where's your teleprompter?" And he said, "Ma'am, I don't need a teleprompter. I actually have thoughts in my head, unlike Kamala Harris."
Ma'am, I don't need a teleprompter. I've actually got thoughts in my head, unlike Kamala Harris.
All right, loser of the week.
Loser of the week, the 291 illegal alien children who have been lost by the Biden-Harris administration, and nobody's talking about it.
291,000.
291,000, yes.
That's right. Tony, how about you? Winner of the week?
The winner of the week is Detroit, because the Detroit Lions are favored to win the Super Bowl this year. Everybody in America is going to be in Honolulu blue, and as a Colts fan, it's devastating, but they look really cool. And Dan Campbell is completely insane as a head coach, and you want him to win. You want him to destroy San Francisco in an NFC championship, and you want to see them go all the way.
All right, what about your loser?
The loser of the week, and I don't know if it was this week or last week, is Ben Affleck. And that's not just because of the divorce. That's just, perennial.
Because he always loses. I think my big loser of the week is democracy. I hate this. If Democrats, I think it's such a joke when they use that line, but since they want to use it, okay, if you're this big of a supporter of democracy and whatever, and you let Kamala Harris get off the way that she did without talking to you for 3.5 weeks, and then use her support animal, her emotional support animal, to still check a box, then that's on you. So you can't say you support democracy and then let it go. So to me, that's the big issue. I'm gonna use that, and the big winner is pronouns, because it went from her interview to their interview. So they finally are using their pronouns.
Look at you.
Look at that, huh? Cute.
Look
I think
at
you also
you.
got to include FSU in there.
That's why his name's on the show, everybody.
That's right. I know. Plus, all right, guys, have a great Thursday night. Tomorrow, 2 great candidates in critical House seats that will not just determine the fate of the U.S. House, but Donald Trump, whether he can get to 270 electoral votes. You are not going to want to miss this. Join us tomorrow. Thanks a lot. Continue to hit that notification button and subscribe on all platforms: YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeart, and Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for being with us. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.